going to start today's lesson by reading you a story. It's a cute little story about a kite. K-I-T-E, kite. I do not know who the author, or at least the original author of this story is, but I must say that I have done my preacher thing to it, and I have embellished it just a little bit. The story of the little kite. Once upon a time, there was a kite that longed to be free. Since the day he was made, he never ceased to dream of the freedom that he knew he'd find in the skies. The kite, however, was not free. Instead, he sat high up in the corner of a toy store shelf, rolled up and fastened tightly with a rubber band. Prospects for freedom seemed dismal since it was November, and as far as the kite knew, there were no kites in the sky in November. Alas, though, one day in December, a few days before Christmas, someone's parents came and took him down from the shelf. They paid for him and took him home, and he thought, freedom at last! Freedom at last! The days passed by quickly as that little kite anticipated the soon-to-be-enjoyed liberty he was really looking forward to. The great day came. It was Christmas. And his package was opened, and he got his first look at his new master. And he thought, freedom! But no. He was put up on a shelf, in a closet, and he had to wait for the March winds to blow. Again, his entire world was dark, and the days of his bondage dragged on, broken only occasionally by the opening and closing of the closet door. But finally, what seemed like an eternity, the door finally opened, and he smelled the first smell of the spring air, and he thought, oh, it's so close, I know I'm going to be free. The kite was then taken off the shelf by his master, taken outside into the backyard, and then it was unrolled, and his cross members were braced tightly, and his plastic body fully stretched out across the span. Oh, it felt so good to be a kite. Almost before he could catch his breath, the wind swept him up in this exhilarating climb into the blue sky, and he quickly rose above the earth, and he was so excited, I'm finally free! And he looked down and he saw all the houses and all the cars, and they were getting so small. He was seeing things he never thought he'd see. He was doing things he never thought he'd do. He's going to places he never dreamed of going, and it was just wonderful, so wonderful to be free. But suddenly, he found he couldn't go any further. His owner had stopped letting out the string. And so the kite cries out, why? Why is my master holding me back like this? I want my freedom. I don't want to be held by anybody's string. And so the kite complained and moaned and groaned and made the decision. He was finally going to be really free. So he tugged and he pulled and he screamed, let me go. And he tugged and he pulled. I want to be free, he said. And finally, he pulled so hard that the string broke. And a wind gust picked him up, and he started to sail away. And he started to see things he never saw before. He started to do things he never thought he'd do before. He started to go places he never dreamed he'd go before, and he finally felt what he thought was absolute freedom. But then, the wind changed. And he started to get tossed back to and fro, and he started to spin around, and before you know it, he was not sailing high in the sky, but started to fall toward the earth. As he dropped toward the earth, his tail caught up in a telephone wire, and the wind blew and bashed him against the telephone pole. Eventually, his tail broke, and he started to fall to the earth once again. And then another gust of wind caught him and slammed him into a nearby tree, breaking his cross members. And the light and the life of the little kite went out. The end. Now some of you are thinking, that's not a happy story. I mean, come on, it's about a kite. How can you tell a story like that about a kite? Well, I preach for a living. I can do a lot of things just don't get that. We are a lot like kites. I believe in a very strange way. This is our story. At least it could be. You see, we all want to be free. Don't you? Don't you want to be free? I believe that within every single person there's this innate desire for freedom. I want freedom. And here we are like the little kite. We have been created, we've been born, and when we were born, we were tied to the hand of the Master God. And as we grew, we started to sail the heights and see some things we never thought we'd see before as little children tied to the hand of the Master himself. But somewhere in our lives, we started to feel the restrictions we thought of God. He's holding me back. He's keeping me from places I'd like to go. So we start to complain about wanting to see things that we really wish we could see. So we start pulling and we start tugging on the string connected to the hand of the Master. Until finally, we break free. And we start to sail on our own, thinking that we have absolute freedom. And then the winds of the world take over the direction of our life. And we start getting tossed to and fro. And sometimes we start to fall, and woe is me, I wish I was still connected to the Master. But then another gust of the worldly wind picks us up and lifts us to places to make us feel comfortable and good again. But you know what happens? You see, part of the world, there's also gravity. So between the winds of the world and the gravity of the world, we eventually, if we don't get reconnected to the Master's hand, end up getting slammed against a tree and our cross members break. And the lights go on in our lives too. You see, we are very much like a kite.